G'day everyone, my name is Wayne Forrest and my co-presenter is Susan Cook, and today we are interviewing the lovely Rob Mokaraka, and he's done an amazing career in acting and all sorts of accomplishments, and I'll hand it over to Susan. She's going to introduce a little bit about what he's done.
Hello everyone, it's so good to speak to all of you. The internet here is so intermittent, so if I disappear, I'm going to expect my co-presenter Wayne to take over and you can just see me frozen. So I'm going to try not to talk with my mouth open too wide for too long. You might see my tongue or something ghastly. Hey Rob, just so good to have you here. I have such huge respect for you after watching you with your amazing show. I had the liberty to be able to be with Wayne, and you can speak about that later on. But what I would love to tell everybody is that you are a writer, an actor, and an award-winning playwright of the play Strange Resting Places. And it's toured to festivals in Australia, Singapore, London, and if you could just tell us a bit more about this, because I'm fascinated and I know the audience would love to hear from you.
Kia ora, Susan and Wayne. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, Strange Resting Places was I was a co-writer with my Italian co-writer and good friend Paolo Rotondo, and we just wove both our genealogies together with our country's histories to bring the Italian and Maori people together, because we got it on so well. We wanted to know why, because there were a lot of cultural similarities. So we went on a massive journey to interview Maori battalion veterans. We interviewed some of his family who fought against each other during the Second World War in Italy. So it was basically we wove our family stories together with other people's histories to not celebrate war, but to celebrate humanity.
Beautiful.
That's an absolute fantastic combination, because of course the Italians were on the other side of the war in the World War II, and that is a celebration of humanity, because it's also, to me, a celebration of forgiveness. And I love that you did that, and that he did it from his side of his story as well. And then I'm going to move in here and actually speak to you about the fact that you won an award in 2014 at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which I know is a hugely prestigious award. People who aren't in the industry may not be aware of this, but to win anything, the Edinburgh Festival, you have to be a pretty powerful writer or poet or actor. Would you like to extend on that, Rob?
1 second, Susan. Hold it up. We, Strange Resting Places, didn't win an award at Edinburgh, but my friend who was doing Strange Resting Places and his own show at the same time, he won it, but he was with us anyway. So I'm just clarifying, we did not win at the Edinburgh Festival.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for that, because I mean, the fact is he did that is so prestigious anyway,
yeah.
And that he actually wrote, it's really quite a feat. So he must have a huge respect for you, Rob, like we do, and many people all over the world. Another thing I'd love to interject here, and I picked up when I first met you, you spent a lot of time on the thespian stages of London, haven't you?
Yeah, we with that play Strange Resting Places, yeah, at the Soho Theatre in Soho.
Congratulations for that, because that is a huge achievement for somebody from an island, and with all due respect, England's an island and New Zealand's an island, but they've been hanging around doing the Shakespeare stuff and everything else, and now we've got this amazing man from New Zealand with his act on stage in London. And I have a passion for theatre and a passion for what you do on stage. And I'm sure Wayne would be able to extend on that as well, because being a man from New Zealand as well, and with a Maori background, both of you, you'd be able to ask Rob a few more questions about his current act and the one that we actually followed with great respect.
Thank you, Susan. And what Susan's talking about, obviously, is we both presented at a grassroots day with Sparrows here in Hawke's Bay, which was a day to help prevent suicide and suicide awareness. And Rob, mate, both Susan and I, we just totally loved your show and Shot Bro and the conversation with the depressed bullet. It really brought in myself the feelings of well, all sorts of feelings. 1 minute joy, next minute dark places and sadness and all those emotions, and the way you acted that out was something incredible that I will never forget throughout my lifetime, because your talent is, to see it, is incredible. So, mate, with that, could you just give us a little bit about how Shot Bro came about and the backstory, obviously, and why, obviously, you are going around the country doing Shot Bro?
Yeah. First of all, it's pretty overwhelming to hear you and Susan lay these accolades on me, because I'm just being me, doing me. But in regards to Shot Bro, Confessions of a Depressed Bullet, almost 10 years ago, 2009, I had a massive public mental breakdown. And I was spinning out of control, didn't know what was wrong with me. And I wanted to die that day, so I provoked the police to shoot me. Because I freaked them out, they shot me at close range with a Glock 9mm bullet. And since that day, that almost killed me, I've been on a healing journey to figure out what happened to me and why. So yeah, over a period of 7 years, I had just writing thoughts and feelings while I was in hospital, going through court cases, because you know, the Crown were trying to make me go to jail, all of this stuff, which was freaking my family out because I had a mental breakdown, and all the courts were involved. And then 7 years later, I was finally ready to tell my own story. And thanks to a good friend, Edna Daniels, she's my friend and director, we crafted this storytelling, which is my personal story, in such a way that I feel safe and that communities feel safe. So it's just opening up that can of worms about mental health in a grey area that we don't really talk about. So people feel that we can normalize it. It's not so heavy if we share and talk about it together.
Thanks, Rob. And I just loved it. It's a great place, and what you do, starting up that conversation, is incredible. And I love how you said that you're just being yourself. You know, all these accolades is because you are coming from the heart, and you're really putting it out there to try to make a change from your own experience. And mate, we've got so much blessing for what you do, and I can't say it enough. But why is it so important for us to have this kōrero with community and with our families? And you know, why should we sit down and have that discussion about that pain?
I think the best way, it's been explained to me by two colleagues, one's a psychologist, one's a coach, life coach, and they said, we've always been told to get over it, we've never been taught how to navigate through it. And people with no tools, like I had in 2009, I had zero tools. When you think that dying is better than crying, there is something very problematic in our society, that you think that we can't talk about mental health, because there's a stigma intergenerational trauma and intergenerational stigma around talking about your vulnerabilities, because vulnerabilities was always viewed as vulnerability, but also cowardice, like you were weak. So, and it was also filled with shame, and therefore the stigma is attached to families intergenerationally. And I'm just normalizing it because the other way has not been working. We have to talk, and while I'm not just saying talk, I'm saying about let's illuminate some tools, practical tools that we can use as families and as society to help each other and ourselves. It's like a holistic way of living and learning.
And Rob, you know, you're dead on the money. That's why I love your show, is because you have that conversation without having that conversation on stage with yourself, and because it is something that's really hard. It's quite often buried, isn't it? That feeling. And what I love is that by having that conversation and giving yourself power to have that conversation, you're actually got more balls than not having. And it's huge to have the mana and the guts to go out and say, this has happened to me, this is how I'm feeling, and we need to talk, because most people want to shove that under the table because it's so painful.
Yeah, it is painful, but we've got to cry it out. And it's like we are human beings. We feel depths of sorrow, depth of joy. You know, we're way more complex. People are just trying to I don't know, submit to the normalities of society, which make us sick, pretending to be great every day because we're being taught, smile, you're having a bad day, just get over it. If people are having multiple bad days and multiple suicidal thoughts, those things accumulate over time. And, you know, that's why people end up having suicidal ideation, because they feel that they can't be listened to without judgment.
Yeah, beautiful. And
I appreciate hearing from you, Wayne, and Rob. It's very profound. And in our coaching, in our evocative coaching professions with Wayne and I, it was very interesting to hear what you said, that a coach said to you that it's not about the past, it's about learning about how to live in the present and not go back to the past the whole time. And that gives you the strength of actually being able to move forward. So I appreciate that as well, that you were able to come to that conclusion. The one thing I would love to know more about from you and for you to share with people is what your other film and acting credits are as well, because you are so accomplished in so many ways. Would you be able to share that with all of us? We're working on like Bride Flight.
Oh, yeah. Like it wasn't like I was prolific, but like, well, I worked on Bride Flight. I was very privileged. It was a long time ago, but I got to work on a Dutch film in Holland, but we shot it in Luxembourg, just a little town out of Luxembourg. And I was a Maori guy playing a Maori guy, but they made the house, was supposed to be shot in New Zealand. They built the house just out of Luxembourg. So I had a great time working with the Dutch people on a film, and yeah, I felt really privileged.
Oh, great. And you've just had such a full life. And this is what people don't understand, is they'll actually look at a person and say, oh, but you've got all of these privileges. You've done all of these things. Why were you in this dark place? People don't understand depression unless they've experienced it themselves. And what I find is very rewarding is seeing what you're prepared to do. I mean, Wayne and I were discussing it the other day. You have the guts to go into prisons where they're high security prisons in order to help people there. Everything you do is from Aroha. And if you can explain to us the real Maori word for Aroha. That means a lot to me since I learned that word.
Yeah, so Aroha, Aro is like the direction and Ha is the breath, but it also, Aroha encompasses like compassion. It's more like unconditional love than like romantic love. So with unconditional Aroha, I know how to use that to help somebody, because somebody who's like in my past, multiple attempts at taking my life, now I know the tools that suicidal Rob needed. And you know, when you're that down and you're that desolate and alone, you're actually needing connection and aroha and love. And I know how to speak to that person. I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means, but aroha and compassion is like putting a beam of light and hope into a dark room. And that's a lifeline to some people. And that's a lifeline I needed. So now I know how to show that and present it. And it's up to the individual or group to grasp those tools if they feel they're ready.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Until they're ready, they don't grasp them, do they, Rob?
No, and it's scary. Like, I've got to thank people like Mike King and Boris Sogratov. In 2011, they invited me to speak on the Nutters Club. And I was taken aback about how open these men were about their mental health and how caring they were. And even though I spoke on their show in 2011, I left feeling skeptical because I was like, is this a trick? Because I felt a little bit vulnerable about sharing my story. So I wasn't ready like I was now. 7 years later, I was, after 2009.
And Rob, you know that you've...
this is another thing is... Sorry, wait. Internet's so bad, I can't see when Wayne's going to speak. So forgive us, audience. Forgive us, Rob.
All good, all good.
Do you want to ask your question, Susan? Or?
I would like to, Rob, because the reason why it's when you were saying you went away skeptical, something I've discovered about people, and it comes from my heart, so I can relate to this, is when you're really hurting and you're in a corner, many people use sense of humor as an escape route and a cover to the hurt that's within. And you were a co-writer and co-actor of the first 2 seasons of the Maori comedy web series called
Might have lost the Rob.
And honest, when you are facing a deep depression, you have the ability to be funny. So that's
I think
it's a powerful cover-up.
Because mental health, the stigma of mental health and suicide is so heavy, I am using humor this time to just to alleviate the heaviness for a moment, just to alleviate it so we can breathe, because it is so heavy and the loss of life is so traumatic for so many families. I am using humor as a superpower just to give enough light so we can feel less pressure, so I can put the medicine into my work. And so the medicine goes down easier with a little bit of light and humor.
It's like a spoonful of sugar. Spoonful of sugar every now and then.
Yes, yes.
So Rob, I'd like to know, and this is where my passion is that the people that I've met that have gone through horrific things, there's a few that, like yourself, that come out the other side and you start to give yourself power and you start to create power for yourself and your life and you, from our perspective, you're creating awareness and helping others with depression to talk about it and to open that korero. So can you give someone who's listening to this some moments where you sort of started to see a different view, and how you started to get that power back for self-love?
Yeah, that was a big journey. So when I was in hospital, multiple surgeries, my guts were cut wide open. I had a really good friend of mine, Tracy Tawhiao. She took me for the first time, I was allowed out of the hospital, and she took me to the beach just for a little couple of hour day trip just from the hospital. I hadn't got out of the hospital for weeks. And she said, then she goes, imagine, Rob, if you spent as much time pouring yourself into the light and the Aroha as you did pouring it into the darkness. And that was like, it was so simplistic. It actually resonated quite deeply with me. Because when you have the voice of doubt and shame and guilt and failure constantly in your ear, like I had, you start to believe all of that. And I was focusing all on that. So now I focus on small victories and pat myself on the shoulder occasionally, even though I still have the voice of doubt going, is that all you've got? I still go, no, I'm worth it. And it's an ongoing work, to know that we're worth it, to congratulate ourselves with tiny victories, not the big end goal.
And that's beautiful, and like you said, you have to be, when you're ready for it, you're ready for it. But I love that you've turned that power, that simple thing of, instead of concentrating on the darkness that's going on in our thoughts, you have learned that you can change those thoughts. You can then focus on something light and brilliant and love. And like what I find with most people that have done that, a big way they do that is by helping others as well. And hence why you do what you do, no doubt. So yeah, Rob, it's fantastic. And we're going to wrap up very shortly, but just before you do, one question. Why is it so important for our whānau to stop and look at the way we've been and having this conversation around depression and anxieties and abuse and all those sort of things? Can you give us something that you would love to see for our whānau? And I understand that you talk about whānau as humanity too. It's not just our families.
Yeah. Good question. Look, the main thing is we've got to start healing ourselves so we can heal our kids, our grandkids in the future, because we're worth it. And to normalize it, we've got to stop being afraid of whatever your shame is, because I don't want intergenerational trauma to continue for anyone. And if we address it and we put light on it, then we're acknowledging what happened. We don't have to live under its shadow, but we can acknowledge it and find tools to help the next generation. And therefore, we can stop bleeding all over people intergenerationally, and then telling them to get over it because you don't have the tools, because you were told to get over it. That's past, that's so archaic. Now, we've got to look at it. To save a life, we have to look in the mirror. And that's hard for a lot of people. But our kids are worth it, we're worth it.
And I love that, because we are a reflection for our kids. We are the reflection for our families. And we are a reflection for our friends and everyone around us. So the best way to change is change our mirror image so we can reflect differently.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I was so inspired by meeting you, Wayne, and Susan at the Grassroots in Hawke's Bay. And I immediately met you both, and I just go, you're beaming light. And in light is hope, and in hope is Aroha. So I'm really grateful to meet you both. So I'm just putting that back at you because I mean it. And I'm really thankful and grateful of that.
Beautiful. And And thank you, Rob.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you. That's so wonderful. Thank you, Rob. That's so
Thank you both.
kind. And really,
So,
I
guys,
just love that. What I love about you is that you work with the inner child of yourself,
Yeah.
and that's what we use in our coaching as well. And you have great knowledge in how to deal with it and how you can put your love and your trust and wrap your arms around your own young inner self and forgive everything that's happened in your life to be the man that you are. I have great respect for you, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you. Much aroha to you both. Thank you.
cool, guys. And just to wrap up, mate,
Here,
go.
Aroha.
There's a bit of a delay in our internet, so sorry, Susan, if I spoke over the top of you then. But I love this, and aroha is the word, mate. And and guys, if you get a chance to go and see Rob, mate, it's better than any soap opera. You'll have every feeling go through your body. At times you'll want to run from the room. At times you'll just want to hug and kiss Rob. And sometimes you just want to tell him to fuck off, pardon my language. But you'll have every emotion, and it's a well worth go and see. Rob, thank you very much for this. And thank you, audience. I hope you enjoyed this. There's some great things. Sorry about the internet troubles we've been having. But yeah, much aroha to you all. And peace.
Peace.
Bye for now.
Aroha. Aroha. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.